I was never the best player, so I was constantly fighting for a place. I had to think differently. Injured again. Now it's taken away from me, not even 20 years old, getting told that my career is basically finished. I started to suffer anxiety and then sometimes full-blown panic attacks. And I couldn't figure out what it was. Scratch head moment. Could it be alcohol? But that felt like heresy. What's going to happen to fun time 4 pints Andy? But made me realise how actually difficult it is as a middle lane average drinker to not drink when our world is completely immersed in alcohol. People resonating with this story of it's nothing to give up, everything to gain. Most people start drinking in their teens and never ever stop.
Today's guest is Andy Ramage, who is one of the world's leading experts on how alcohol impacts peak performance in every aspect of life. From professional footballer to the founder of 2 major stock brokerages, Andy now celebrates his 10-year alcohol-free anniversary. And through his own inspiring journey and personal challenges, Andy has shown millions of people the immense upsides of living alcohol-free. Through his treble-accredited program, he has trained hundreds of sobriety coaches, empowering them to help others unlock their potential. As a senior trainer with the Professional Footballers Association, a best-selling author of 2 transformative books, and a renowned speaker on peak performance in life and business, Andy is on an unstoppable mission to help people become the best version of themselves. Get ready for a conversation that will inspire you to rethink what's possible when you're at your best, in mind, body, and in spirit. Andy, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm flying along. Delighted to be here. Yeah.
I love that. And I've got to say, since you walked in the room, you've got great energy.
Oh, good.
Always got to pick up on people's energy, so I'm already buzzing from you. So good to meet you. Now, Andy, we've just filled in the graph of life, and without going into the depths of it, how was that exercise for you, kind of looking back?
Really interesting, and maybe it's reflective of lots of people's lives, but certainly mine. There's been some high highs and some low lows. But what's nice is that last line to where I'm today is really that sort of upward trajectory of improvement, which is pretty cool.
Really cool. And we'll get onto it later because I think there's a quote that you said, which is it your mess can be your greatest message, or around those lines, right?
Yeah.
And I feel that graphs are often messy, so we'll see what message I suppose that's going to bring out. Now, as always with our guests on the show, I like to go back, all the way back if I can. Could you picture your earliest childhood memory?
Yeah, I think I was around 10.
Okay.
I grew up in a place called Dagenham, East London, or Dargingham, if you want to be posh. It's not that posh. But my childhood was really happy. I'm really fortunate. Great parents, 2 brothers who I adore with brilliant friends. So my childhood was very much BMX and football. That was it. So I can remember around 10 getting my first BMX bike.
Yeah.
And it was just such a brilliant moment. That excitement, especially now we're around Christmas time. It was just that real sense of joy, of that freedom of being able to go outside and move. I absolutely loved.
So who was at home then? 2 brothers and mum and dad?
Yep. And it was all just football and BMX and occasional bit of school.
Yeah. And who influenced that then? Because obviously we'll get into the start of your career in a moment, into the world of football, but who influenced that from your early years?
My dad was a big footballer. He had a chance to play professional football when it wasn't really a thing. In fact, they were poorly paid and he didn't choose that path, and I think it's something he always regretted. So he always instilled it in us boys. We just grew up loving football. We're West Ham fans and families, so it's just always been a huge part of our life since I could remember.
And so, what is that earliest memory then? So you're 10 years old. What comes to mind?
Warmth, love, comfort, joy. My mum, that just sense of real connection. Again, I'm one of those people that I feel very fortunate that I had a really lovely childhood and a great upbringing. Yeah. Very fortunate. I know lots of people don't have that. And I think that's been a bedrock of everything that's followed from then on.
Interesting. And as the years went on then, you then decide to take a career in football. Just talk to me. So your dad influenced that slightly, but how did that feel? Because that must have been so exciting as a young lad.
Oh, it was. From the age of 10, I signed with a professional club. And then at 16, I got the opportunity to go full-time, as it were. And I'd actually played rugby all through school. Yeah. So I found myself with this beautiful opportunity to go and play professional sport. But the reason the graph really starts to to move at that stage is that I realized really quickly I was miles behind technically. I was sort of one of those. I could run through a brick wall. I was probably a better rugby player than I was a footballer.
Yeah.
And my dad used to joke, he said, you had the control of Bambi on ice, or you couldn't trap a bag of cement, was one of his favorite sayings. So technically I wasn't where I needed to be, but that was brilliant for me because I found out really quickly in a man's world, probably 30 or 40 professional athletes all vying for just 11 spaces from a very early age. I had to think differently because technically I was too far behind. So I started to read. Nice. Something that probably not a lot of footballers did at that time. Self-development books, books on philosophy. And it transformed my mind at a really early age. So I had to think differently, act differently. I trained differently. And I started to get different results, which accelerated my development really quickly against all the odds. So that was a really great experience for me to have at a really young age.
So I guess, and we're going to come on to this a little bit later, of the impact of variables in our life and how they impact our performance. And that's something you've been aware of, I guess, from the age of 10, 11 growing up, right? So you were always making tweaks in your life to boost your performance.
Absolutely. And that mind tweak, which it was, because it wasn't a physical tweak really in many ways, because I just, I was too far behind technically, got me great results. So that spurred me on then for the rest of my life. It was like the power of the mind to make a difference to your ability to perform is just incredible.
Did it ever become too much, or were you always thriving in this feedback and arguably pressure, from those around you? If you want to be the best, this is what you've got to do. Did you ever have a moment of overwhelm, or were you always just like, give it to me, I'll keep on improving?
No, it was brutal. The whole experience is brutal. When you step into that arena and your life, livelihood, world, meaning, purpose is on the line with every tackle, with every moment that you play poorly, you get dropped. I was never the best player, as just described. So I was constantly fighting for a place to stay in the team. It was so hard. Brutally hard. And only really the tough survive. I think the system needs broken apart and rebuilt in many ways for that reason. But in many ways, it built this real resilience in me. The ability to get dropped, get let down, to miss time tackles and have to build yourself back up. So it was a gift in many ways, the gift of resilience it installed in me because it was so hard.
I mean, it's interesting, right? This word resilience. I have this discussion over dinner with a lot of people and I'm going there now instead of later, which is, often people who face some form of adversity, challenge, trauma, call it what you will, come out more resilient in the end. And the question is, can you build resilience if somebody's not gone through adversity or trauma? And I guess what you're saying is, well, kind of, yeah, because this wasn't, unexpected trauma or adversity. People put the pressure on you in a good way at a young age and it built you up.
Absolutely. And I think getting outside of your comfort zone and trying new things and learning to fail. Because we have to fail. If there's a secret to success, it's those that are most willing to fail. Because that's how we learn, develop and grow. Last night, I was training a group of professional athletes. Nice. I work with Professional Footballers Association, their business school, and pretty much telling them exactly that. As potential business professionals outside of their career and in their playing career, you have to learn to be able to collide with life, knowing that it's probably going to go wrong. At some point, there's going to be a big dip in that curve, but that's probably going to be your best teacher. And that was, again, through that lovely lived experience of it being really tough. And it hurt a lot at times. You grow stronger through that process, and that then serves you in the balance of your life, I think.
And speaking about dips and challenges, I know then you faced an injury that was pretty pivotal in your life. Just tell me a little bit more about this injury, like what happened, and then obviously how it kind of shaped you going forward.
Yeah, well, there was 2 points actually in that journey. Why it spikes up, comes down, spikes up again. At 18, so at the end of my YTS, this was with Leighton Orient, I got called into the room. It's like X Factor. You almost queue outside the manager's room and they're going to tell you whether you've made it or not. Like, that is brutal. You've been there from the age of 10. It was like one boy goes in, comes out in tears. The next one goes in, high-fiving. I went in, came out in tears. You're over. You're not good enough. And I'd moved so far along that continuum as described. And that then was a moment for me where I remembered a quote that I read from Epictetus, which is, it's not events that shape our lives, but our beliefs about them. I read that again later in Anthony Robbins' book. We'll get to that. But it was a reminder that I've got a choice in this moment. I could choose to believe I'm not good enough and give up. The other 16 boys did that and never, ever played football. I chose, do you know what? I've come so far so quickly. I've got more in me. I'm going to try again. So I trialled with Gillingham.
Yeah.
Got a professional contract, found myself in the first team quite quickly, established myself as a professional footballer. Then I got injured.
But before that injury, because I just want to go back to that dip a second. So you stood outside the room, many, coming out in tears. You got the bad news as well, but you picked yourself up. How quickly did you pivot that? Dust yourself up and be like, right, come on, Andy, sort it out. Was that like overnight? Are you like quite quick? What's that process like?
It was quite quick. And I know that now because I met my brother that afternoon and we went to the pub, funnily enough, with a few of the lads that had also been rejected, and we were playing pool, and he recalls the story where I said to him, I'm going to prove him wrong. I'm going to prove him wrong. And he said he was really taken aback when he could see that a lot of the other guys were completely despondent, dismayed, that I turned it around really quickly. Yeah. I didn't know that I'd done that at the time, but clearly I think that work I'd done through reading, self-development, philosophy, had started to build a better brain.
Yes.
So when I faced that adversity, I already knew what to do.
Interesting. So that happened. You're playing pool. You decide, I'll prove them wrong. I'll go for it. You get into the first team. Things are going well. Hence, we're back up on the graph here. And then? Injured
again. Now it's taken away from me. So my meaning, my purpose, what I just thought was gone, finished. It was a small injury, but a bigger injury in the sense that it was a torn cartilage, which I kept playing on, which meant arthritis effectively. So I couldn't train and play. Okay. So it was one of those, you might get a year or two out of it. Again, more tears on my part. I was not even 20 years old, getting told that my career is basically finished. So again, I'm in that big hole. Now what do I do? This was the plan. The plan's gone wrong. I didn't factor in the plan that actually I might get injured and my career might be over. So I had to dust myself off and pick myself up. And in my instance, I was joked, but I put gel through my shocking footballer's haircut. I had one of those long ginger ones. I don't know what I was thinking. But those photos still haunt me all around the internet. This is the reason I do this, to eventually flush them out the system. So I ended up going traveling.
Oh, nice. Where'd you go?
Yeah, we went all over. I spent a lot of time in Ireland. Okay. Met my now wife over there, Australia and all around, and spent a good 4 or 5 years just floating about and trying to find myself. I was completely lost in many ways.
So, I mean, if you weren't injured, you might not have gone to Ireland and met your wife.
Oh, absolutely. And I look at it now as a gift.
Yeah.
I wasn't good enough. I might have played lower league football, which I get to see the other side of it now. I work with so many athletes. I coach so many athletes in their transition from their playing days to their next career. Yeah. And actually, we forget about athletes. Their careers are over so young. The average age of a football retirement is 27.
Wow.
Just warming up. So I actually came back to the city to start this new career after traveling when I was 27, 28.
Wow.
So I say that to a lot of the lads now. My business career didn't begin till I was 28.
And then that business career, then you go into oil brokerage.
Yeah.
Right. I'm all about joining the dots. Join those dots for me. What got you from world of football? You've gone traveling, met your wife, so girlfriend at the time, I'm assuming, or I don't know if you got married. Oil brokerage. Where's the link?
Well, there sort of wasn't one. It wasn't meant to be a plan. But while I'd been away, my older brother, he'd been working really hard. And it just so happened he'd become, and still is, one of the world's biggest crude oil traders. Wow, he'd sort of walked down onto the trading floors at a young age and was super successful. Time at BP, now at a big hedge fund. So like big brothers do, he was like, I think you'd be really good at the broking part, which is the matching of buyers and sellers of oil. Very social, which I was good at, fast paced, very dynamic. Let me speak to a few people. The plan was to go back to Ireland, did an interview over a few drinks, funny enough, and got offered a job. And I thought, again, that was a pivotal moment. I'd left school at 16, bearing in mind. So I had no formal education really outside of the obvious. Diagnosed as hyperactive, dyslexic. I'd have had different labels today, I'm sure. Much better ones than that. So there was that pivotal moment of, well, I could choose to believe I'm not going to be smart enough to do this. How am I going to compete with all these guys and girls that have got degrees and A levels, and I'm just a footballer and all those good things. And now I'm 28 as well. So it's not like I'm young in that bigger picture, but that mindset again of what have I got to lose? I'm not going to know unless I try. And I found myself in that environment, and genuinely it was like a duck to water. Instantly took to it. It was the closest thing I'd ever found to professional sport. Fast paced, electric, dynamic, high risk, high reward. There was even the odd slide tackle, loads of sending offs, if you know that environment. And I loved it. Yeah. And it was that sort of fast forward 10 years. I'd gone in literally as the T-boy at 28, which is hard to do, to the boss.
Nice.
And running my own, big franchise offices in New York, Houston, Singapore. And it was a really lovely experience and time.
It's so nice as well. I think that your dad obviously influenced career number one, let's say, and then your brothers influenced career number two, and had quite an influence on you from that small happy family that started out, right? It really
from Dagenham in East London, and actually our next door neighbour's one of the biggest, all these boys came out of East London have done particularly well for themselves. And I say that to the athletes that I coach all the time. Your network is your net worth.
100%.
So incredibly important. The amount of businesses that I've started with lads that I played football with in my teams and partnerships I've started with. One of the big brokerages that I set up was with a guy that I met fishing over the park one day. You know what I mean? We set up a financial futures brokerage together.
But this is the thing. People, I feel like they've got to take advantage of what's around them. An opportunity's there, but if you take it or not, it's up to you. And a lot of people don't. You obviously join the dots, you meet people, you seize opportunities, right?
And what is important about that as well, I was really lucky to have a dad that had done well, lucky to have a brother that had done well. And again, if you don't have that network, I think it's really important to go and proactively find that network, listen to the podcast, turn up to the events, reach out to people, build your network if you don't have one. It's really important. Yeah, no, I'm with you. I felt the amount of people I meet and it's just ask the question. The worst you're going to get, to your point, is a no. And then, like you've just done a few times, you brush it off and you crack on and you move on. You'll be amazed who you can get in touch with. I sent James Watt, who's the founder of Brewdog. Okay, yeah. So I thought he'd be a really interesting person to talk to. What's his email going to be? james@brewdog.com. Send him an email. 15 minutes, email comes back. Yeah, I'll meet you. $1 billion business owner sent an email. Yes. Guessed his email. Came straight back and I'm in a meeting with him. Just shows you what can be done. So true. You never know. People are going to reply. Now, the years go on. You mentioned there, starting as the T-boy and working your way up, and the irony that you joined over a couple of drinks, right? Yeah. And obviously, if people look you up today, they'll see a lot of your incredible work is around being alcohol-free. Now, before we get into that, just talk to me a little bit. What was this moment in your life where you went from having a drink, I'm sure, to I'm done with it? Yeah, it basically happened in my latest 30s. Okay. Again, this was the moment I had a bit of an epiphany in the sense that I built a good broking business, achieved material success. Yeah. What I'd always thought once I got there, I'd be conventionally happy, right? That's what the wisdom tells us. How's that going for everyone? And I feel lucky enough in some ways that I got there. I got to have a look at it. I should have been moonwalking down Liverpool Street Station, high-fiving the ticket attendants, only I wasn't. I was 3 stone heavier than I am now. Working too hard, relationships were strained, unfit, unhealthy, starting to suffer mild panic attacks, sometimes full-blown panic attacks. Things weren't right. Outwardly, I was crushing it. Inwardly, I was struggling. So I had that moment of looking around at my peers who were more successful than me by that one yardstick that I had, which was money. Yeah. I saw more of the same. Broken bodies, broken minds, broken homes. And I just thought, I don't aspire to that. Do you know what? I don't care. You can keep your money. I'm going to do something different. So rather than do something drastic like quit this big business that I built, I quit the big business that I built. And everyone said, you're mad. You can't do that. I was like, I don't care. I actually don't care. I need to do something different. This is not serving me. It's not lighting me up. I'm not finding my meaning, my purpose. So I got a year out on gardening leave, which is paid leave effectively. Very nice. So I got to travel the world, train with some of the best thought leaders and thinkers. And by fluke, I'd read a book called Awaken the Giant Within, which you might be familiar with, by Anthony Robbins. And in that book, he kept talking about this guy he trained with called John Grinder, who's the co-founder of NLP, which is a coaching technique. And I thought to myself, imagine if I could learn from this guy, John Grinder, thinking I'm going to have to fly to LA and it's going to cost hundreds of thousands of pounds. Googled around, John Grinder, next course, Croydon. I was like, what's he doing in Croydon? So I did this course. I had no intention of ever becoming, executive coach, but I just wanted to learn from the guy. 10 days with him absolutely blew my mind. The learning I picked up, built on that lovely quote I mentioned earlier. It's not events that shape our lives, our beliefs about them. And that just instilled this love in coaching for me. What came out of that then, just to share some of those learnings from that course? One of the big awareness was that we can visualize our future. I did a lot of work around that. We did a little visualization earlier on, that your brain can't really tell the difference between reality and what's made up. So if you're fearful about trying something new or you're lacking confidence, go and put yourself in that position in advance in your mind and rehearse it. And then when you find yourself there, you've got the confidence you need. Those little tools and techniques were rocket fuel, not only to my career as a broker, which took off like a rocket on the back of all that learning. I then started to coach people part-time around the side because I just loved the sport of coaching, and it started to make a massive difference into my life, to such a point, having left school at 16, I went back to do a degree part-time and then a master's degree in positive psychology and coaching psychology part-time. It took me 7 years to do that in the end. But my mind was just alive. It was like, this is what I'm after, this coaching. I now train lots of coaches. It's a big part of what I do, but it came back to looking at everything in my life, from the way that I was exercising to the way that I was drinking. And it really gave me that point of reflection. And of course, like most people, I lifted every rock: exercise, nutrition, ice baths, meditation. The last thing I ever considered was alcohol.
Interesting.
Because it's just part of what we do, who we are, especially as a broker in the city. I just didn't even question it. And of course, I tried all those different things. I was really inconsistent. And then one day I thought, I wonder, scratch head moment, could it be alcohol? But that felt like heresy to me. How can I question that thing? What's going to happen to fun time 4 pints Andy? And my mate's going to leave me, and my clients disown me. Is my wife going to run off with the postman that likes a beer or two? And how the hell am I going to dance at weddings? How's that going to happen without alcohol? So I was filled with all this fear, but I thought, I wonder if I remove it, will it be the keystone to all these other initiatives? And in my case, it was.
Wow. So how did you go about that then? So again, you change different variables, you pinpoint alcohol. Was it 0 to 100? It's going out my life? Or how did you test it and see the impact on you?
It took me quite a while. I mean, my relationship with alcohol, to be really clear, and I'm always talking to this same group, was average. I'd consider myself a middle lane drinker. Sometimes I'd drink heavily, sometimes averagely, sometimes not at all.
Sure.
It's probably about 70% of the adult population. Are we all drinking too much? Absolutely. Who isn't? So to remove it was really difficult because the social pressure was immense. It was the persona that I'd built. I was the larger than life character that took you out. And if I took you out, we were going drinking. It's how I won clients. It's how I met my friends. So my rubber arm was twisted a lot early on. That social pressure, which there's a lot of social pressure around alcohol. Don't be such a lightweight. What do you mean you're not drinking with me? You're out last week. And I would crumble a lot of the time. So I stopped and started. And one of my colleagues, I remember it really clearly, he bet me any money. He owes me a lot of money. He bet me any money that I couldn't do a month. And I didn't.
And that's the type of comment that will drive people like us.
It pissed me off. I was like, I'm going to prove you right. Of course I didn't. And I failed dramatically because we all go out together socially. So I got 2 or 3 weeks in. Of course, my rubber arm was twisted by a client and I had to come back and face that, which really spurred me on in many ways, but made me realize how actually difficult it is as a middle lane average drinker to not drink when our world is completely immersed in alcohol.
And you mentioned before, I think you call it a social angel, alcohol. And it is that fact. I think a lot of people, they can go to an event and I still see it today. People just give you wine. But how, if somebody's listening thinks, you know what, Andy, I'd like to be a bit more like that, like put certain limits in place. How can they go about it, especially in social situations, if people are putting that pressure on them?
Well, what saved me and where a lot of this begins, I pretended that I was on a challenge. This was before there was any challenges. Dry Jan wasn't even probably really a thing then. So I thought, if I say I'm on a challenge, I'm just taking a month off. It sort of gave people a bit of an excuse to think, oh, they're going to get me back in a month, or I can meet you in a month's time. So it just took a little bit of pressure off, just enough pressure off for me to get some momentum behind it and discover, was it the thing that I thought it was? So for me, I still love that concept of taking a break, taking a challenge. It doesn't have to be a forever thing. And the world has changed dramatically. Bearing in mind, I'm over a decade on this alcohol-free adventure. So back then, there was no alcohol-free alternatives. Dry Jan wasn't a thing. Now you've got such a plethora of choice. It's made it so much easier that you can still be, especially in those social settings, and organizations and restaurants and companies are getting so much better at providing alcohol-free alternatives. So it's definitely changed. But that being on a break concept, I think, is really powerful.
Well, I'm just intrigued by this. Let's say Dry Jan. Okay. Because for me personally, I do have a drink now and again, but I have firm rules. I don't drink Sunday to Thursday. If I'm at a networking event, I'll have water and I'm fine with that, very disciplined. And I have a little drink now and again if I fancy it, which 9 times out of 10, I don't need one. Dry Jan comes around and then you get so many people, which I see the pros of this, giving up alcohol for January. Then February comes around and it's back to the same habits. Is there a benefit of doing 1 month without something if you're going to go back to the old habits? Question mark.
There absolutely is. And we know that through the literature and the research. But I know the point you're making, and I'm with you, that the point is that you can have the mindset of, I'm going to do Dry Jan. I'm going to force myself to do it. It's going to be a rubbish month. I'm fed up and tired after all the Christmas boozing. So I'll use that Dry Jan as an excuse to go absolutely bananas in December.
Yeah.
And actually then I'll use it as an excuse to drink quite heavily, probably for the next 11 months of the year, knowing that I've done a Dry Jan, and actually learn nothing from it.
Yes.
Whereas my mindset has always been, there's nothing to give up and there's everything to gain by taking a break. And I prefer a longer break as well. And back to my story, that's what happened to me. Eventually I got to 28 days, the longest I'd ever been. I started to feel good, like really good, in a way I've never felt before. Because bearing in mind, most people start drinking in their teens and never ever stop to the day they depart this short and precious life. It's completely bananas when you think about it. So at that 28-day mark, I had enough to think I'm going to keep going. And as I kept going, the wins kept building. All that weight, I lost it.
Wow.
3 stone in weight, body fat went from 35% down to below 10%, resting heart rate, which had elevated up to 68, went back to my athlete 42. Again, rosacea that I had, a chronic skin condition, apparently vanished. My early onset heart disease was paused, if not reversed. My business boomed in a way I never thought it would boom. When everyone said your business would fail if you're a broker and you don't drink, because I had more time, more energy, was always on the ball. And most importantly, my relationships, my wife and daughters, was better than ever because I was really present with them. I was starting to discover my authentic self again. And those wins compounding, I was just thought, I've got to share this with people. There must be so many people in a similar position to me that are an average drinker. If only they knew with the right mindset, if they took a break and looked for the wins rather than what they were missing, they'd unlock this key to optimal performance in every domain of life.
Wow. And I think, so you got to a stage there where you pretty much transformed your life from this one variable, you know, that lingers around our lives, has changed your life. You then are committed to, how can I share with others? And I know then you co-founded 1 Year No Beer. Yeah. Which again, put a lot of challenges out there to help other people do what it says on the tin, right? 1 year without beer. Is that right?
Yeah, effectively what happened was that I didn't know how to share it. Again, I was a broker in the city, and this is back to that point again. So I wrote this ebook. I just slapped it down one day, 10,000 words. And someone said, show it to a book agent. So I got a really well-respected book agent and showed him this book. And bearing in mind that I'd left school at 16 and dyslexia, all those things, can't spell, all that stuff. But I really had something to share. I thought there's got to be lots of people in this middle lane average drinker that might be inspired by this book. And I showed it to the agent. She read it and said, Andy, this is absolutely rubbish. No one's going to want to read this. What is this? Because this was in advance of, people didn't understand the middle lane. People thought alcohol was black and white. You're either drunk, and if you had a problem, you couldn't drink. And that was it. Nothing in the middle. So I really had to fight. And I've been doing that for 10 years to create this whole space in the middle, the middle lane. And again, met with that moment of, it's not events that shape your life, it's your beliefs about them. I could have chosen to believe, yeah, she's right, I give up. Or actually, do you know what? I've got something to share. If I can help one person, and this whole book's been worth it. So we just self-published it. And it literally was that. It was a Word document as a PDF put out on the internet. And then it went like wildfire, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 downloads all over the world. People resonating with this story of, it's nothing to give up, everything to gain. This is about optimal performance and wellness. This is not the old message. This is a fresh message about average drinkers taking a break and getting great results. To such a point, Pan Macmillan, one of the world's biggest publishers, then knocked on the door and said, let's make a real book with editors and stuff who can check your spelling. So we created this real book, which kickstarted this movement, which was 1 Year No Beer, which had various challenges within it. And the concept being exactly just inspire the average drinker, of which there's about 2 billion in the middle lane. I thought there was millions, there's 2 billion. To take a proactive break from alcohol and see for them, does it give them more time, more energy, more oomph, more mojo? Are they better parents, even better at their careers? Is their mental health better? Have they got more time, more energy? What a gift. And that's what I've basically been doing every day for 10 years ever since.
It's fascinating. And obviously in advance of seeing you today, I was doing some research on some of the websites that you've been involved in around this. And it was saying that, those who've been on some of these programs, up to 79% increase better sleep, where people think alcohol, will knock me out, but knocking yourself out doesn't equal better sleep. Right?
Oh, absolutely. So it's sedation. So even if you look at some of the literature that's coming out now, the real experts in the field are talking about alcohol and saying that it's not even technically sleep. They're calling it alcohol sedation. Wow. It sedates your brain in the same way that an anesthetic would sedate your brain. So a great sleep coach taught me this metaphor, which I really like. His name's Nick Littlehouse. He was the original sleep coach of Man United and Team Sky. He was the guy that got them ferrying their mattresses between hotels and hotels. He's really like marginal gains style thinker. But he described it like this: when we drink alcohol, or actually when we sleep in 90-minute cycles effectively. And it's like walking down a flight of stairs. Right. When we get to the bottom deep stair, it's where we replenish and we recover. Then we walk all the way back up. That takes 90 minutes. When we drink alcohol, you only get a couple of stairs down. So instead of you getting down to those deeper, lower, restorative, replenishing steps, you stay at those higher steps. That's why technically it knocks you out. So it does send you to sleep. That's a fact. But you wake up feeling tired, don't you? If you've ever had that alcohol-induced sleep, you can have 8 hours in bed and you wake up, you feel awful. Horrible. Like you haven't slept because you're not actually getting down to those deeper layers of restorative sleep.
Fascinating. I think, and on that, I was also looking at the impact on anxiety. And I've seen this, back in my early years when I'd go out, have a big night, and it was often not the next day, it's the day after, the emotional impact, but it is a depressant.
Oh, absolutely. Right? It's a depressant on your central nervous system.
It's numbing.
But where the depressive symptoms or anxiety comes from is when we drink alcohol. Most people don't think about this. I certainly didn't. And as mentioned in my story, I started to suffer anxiety and then sometimes full-blown panic attacks. And I couldn't figure out what it was. I stopped drinking. It's gone away. It's never come back. It's 100% down to alcohol. And I see that all the time. Of course, it's not a cure-all. The amount of people that I believe right now are probably suffering in their mental well-being, thinking it could be all sorts of other things, and maybe they're trying different things. The first thing to try is remove alcohol if you're an average drinker. Because what happens is when we drink alcohol, it overstimulates a neurotransmitter called GABA. GABA is the thing that slows the system down. So that makes us more relaxed. That's really what attracts us to alcohol in many ways. But the brain has to maintain equilibrium. So the yin to GABA's yang is a neurotransmitter called glutamate. Glutamate's role is to excite the system. Too much glutamate you seize and fit. So it can be really dangerous. But what happens is, as you're overstimulated on GABA, the brain then has to pump more and more glutamate to offset the overstimulation of GABA. But then GABA flushes out the system quicker than the glutamate as the alcohol dissolves. Then you're left overstimulated with glutamate. So you're anxious, you're fearful. So very often it causes that panic style anxiety. The beer fear, you're scared of your own shadow. That's because of this neurochemical imbalance produced by alcohol. No one ever thinks about that. So obviously if you remove alcohol, you get that beautiful balanced brain back where you can perform at an optimal level.
I love it. And I feel like it is just, small changes to people. Like if I go to a networking event, which I don't go to that many these days, but I go there and people just grab a glass of wine, grab a glass of water or anything else, and the same, you don't even realize. I find this anyway in people. And also I challenge back to like those who you're around. I've often said if people don't respect you, well, they should respect your no. If they're not respecting your no, then do they really respect you, and should they be people you're around? I say all of that to ask you that if somebody's listening, they think, look, Andy, I get it. I just do feel that peer pressure sometimes. What would your advice be to them if they're like, look, I want to try this that Andy's spoken about, giving up a bit of alcohol? Where can they go? Step number one. What should they do?
Step number one, I think, is just start. As so obvious as that is. Because I always say to people, it's funny with alcohol, most of us have an average relationship with it. But if I say to most people, just take a break for 90 days, most people are filled with some form of fear. It's like, hold on, but Christmas is coming up. Oh no, but I've got a holiday partway, but I've got a birthday. Oh, and what about the stressful day? Like, even though, again, at a moderate, middle lane level, most people have a lot of fear around alcohol. So my advice is just start. Go for it. What are you waiting for? Why wait another day to potentially unlock your optimal potential? Better vitality, more health, more consistency, more energy. Like, just crack on, better sleep. In that state, we have an app. I stepped down from One Beer in 2019. Created an app called Dry, D-R-Y-Y.
Cool.
I think community is really important when it comes to taking on these challenges, because what you'll find is you'll probably be one of the only people in your network that's courageous enough to do this, because most people drink. So it's great to have community and support around you, I think, as well, from a group of people that are going through a similar thing at the same time. And then it's focus on the wins. Again, not on what you're missing, on what you're gaining. And what you'll also find is, and you described it brilliantly, you'll go to a social scene, for example. And of course, there's natural fear around that. You've got a heightened anxiety, right? Because there's new people and new faces. But what you'll realize is, if you just sit with it for 15 minutes, the anxiety goes away anyway, which is such a win, because then you realize, oh, I don't need to drink alcohol to remove the anxiety. I just need to sit with it for 10 or 15 minutes, and then I can drive home, and then I can wake up the next day, optimized, perform at an elite level in the office. I'm not hungover or anxious, and all those things. It's compounding wins all over the place.
So, and it is that, as you said, compounding wins. I feel like sit with any human being and think what's important to you in your life. If it's your family, if it's your weight, if it's your health, it's alcohol or the reduction of alcohol can positively impact all of those areas. Your career
absolutely.
to your...
Or the flip side of that,
it
has a negative impact on all of those things. And you'll never know.
Yeah.
You'll never, ever know. This is the thing. So many adults start in their teens, never stop. How will you know if your holidays are not 10 times better without alcohol? How will you know if your work performance is not even better? How will you know if your relationships, your mental health is not better unless you try? And I think a slightly longer break, 90 days for me is really important. We're making a documentary about this at the moment, which I'm really excited about. We're putting people through a 90-day challenge. We're filming the whole process. They're average middle lane drinkers, just to showcase what's happening. And it's brilliant, because I'm seeing it with my own eyes yet again. The exact same wins: better mental health, saving a ton of money, better parents, better at their careers. It's like, it genuinely, I know we talk about the SuperPower podcast. It is an absolute knock it out the park superpower.
It is. No, and I love the 90 days there, because I'm a big fan of creating new habits. And we know it's, whether it's 66 days or more, call it 90, to create a new habit. And then at the end of that, be so intriguing to almost see those later on. Hopefully they stick with it.
Yeah, they are. They're getting coached by a really good coach.
Yeah,
myself. So I'm under a lot of pressure. If they all crumble halfway through, I'm not very good at this. But at the moment, although it's helpful that there's a documentary around it. So let's just say their accountability is slightly higher than most people's, but still, it's lovely to see them get the results.
Yeah. And if people want to start their journey then, so can they download the app?
Yeah, it's free. Yeah. We're live in there every single day. It's an incredible resource, beautiful community, DIY, wherever you get your apps.
Brilliant. From. Okay, awesome. So hopefully people download that. And as you say, it's those people who maybe are like, oh no, I'm in this social circle where people don't get me. You've got a place to go where people will understand you, support you. There's a community there.
Yeah, that's really important for me. For that reason, it's nice to have a space where you can go, I feel amazing. And everyone goes, yay. Yeah. Whereas you tell your mates that and they're a bit hungover, they're like, I'll bore off.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Don't bother me with that. You know, and people have to be ready to change. I always tell the story, like, my wife still drinks.
Yeah.
And that's important, right? I love her, respect her. That is absolutely her choice. And when it comes to taking a break from alcohol, we're all so unique and so different. So my views of alcohol are very different to other people's. You'll never know unless you try, but you might find a loved one or friends or family, they just don't get it. Yeah. It's not because they don't love you and support you, but through their map of the world, they just don't see the potential benefits in a way. But people have to be ready to change. And I always joke about it. My wife took one of these fitness challenges a few years ago, 6-pack revolution.
Okay.
And part of that, when you get on the inside, is you don't drink if you want best results. Bearing in mind, my wife's sat next to me for 10 years. For 10 years, I've been saying the same blooming things about the joys, the benefits, the wins of being alcohol-free. My wife does this training program. Partway through, she's alcohol-free, right? She wants best results. She gets 45 days in, pulls me to one side, like she's telling me a secret, and pulls me into the room and says, Andy, you know, I'm doing this alcohol-free thing. I'm like, yeah. And I'm like 8 years into it at this stage. She went, I've got more time. I've got more energy. I'm getting more stuff done. I feel more authentically me. I've lost weight. I'm like, are you having a laugh? Are you actually having a laugh? Are you trying to tell me as if you're showing me this big secret? I've been banging on about this for the last, in this case, 8 years. But I highlight the point because it's an important point. People have to be ready to change as well. You can't force it upon them, you know. So if you're feeling that buzzed and you're feeling inspired, go for it. But don't expect everyone else around you will follow you.
And I also feel, to your point there about with your wife involved there, like I'm a big fan of like experiential learning, and like you got to feel something to change something. And I suppose there, as you say, when your wife or whoever it is goes through it themselves, they feel the results. We can tell them all day long, but once they take the advice, try it, it speaks for itself, right?
Exactly. And that's been my big point all along. That's why I'm always speaking to the average drinker, the middle lane. You won't know unless you try. Imagine all the wonderful things that I've been going on about today, the weight loss, the better mental health, better performance across every domain. Imagine that's waiting for you. You'll never know unless you try. And back to my point, most people never try.
No.
Because they're not aware of it. And that's really what I've been trying to do for 10 years is almost just make people aware. Just tap people on the shoulder and just say, have you considered this? It's a real thing, and people are getting incredible results.
Well, I hope that those listening next time, and some people might be on board as well, where they serve alcohol. So maybe they want to switch their alternative up when they're about to order a drink, or just at the next social occasion, as you say, switch an alternative, sink into that 15 minutes of whatever it may make you feel, get curious about it, and then it soon goes.
Yeah, and it's that getting outside your comfort zone again, isn't it? It's like challenging yourself. But imagine how powerful you will feel. And I really believe there's a real power in meeting life head on, authentically as you. We turn to alcohol for so much to numb away fake confidence, all the things we turn to it for. When you go alcohol free for 90 days, you'll have the big social event. You'll have the stressful day. You'll have, the day that goes wrong, the day that goes right. And dealing with all of that with like the really authentically powerful you builds that resilience, builds that courage, builds that confidence that is a lasting kind of inner glow of confidence. And I think people are attracted to it as well. That you're standing there in your own power. You don't have to take this liquid to become someone that you're not. So for that alone, what a lovely experiment.
So true. And look, obviously it's my job throughout this whole conversation. I've been trying to understand a little bit more about you, Andy, and your life and your career and everything to date to think about your superpower. But before I go there and go through my quick fire questions, which are known for not being that quick, you've just hit a milestone birthday recently. When we started speaking today about this 10-year-old lad with his brothers and his dad, and now, just hit that milestone. How do you feel? How's life as you look back on it so far? How do you feel today?
I feel really great. I'm so grateful. And I'm so grateful for my relationship with alcohol that woke me up. It woke me up to a different way of living. And I didn't finish that in the story, but eventually I stepped away from the brokerage. So now full time I get to do what I love. So I train coaches, life coaches, executive coaches. That's what I do for my living, for my life. I get to hopefully add value to people's lives, and
so much.
We can do it from anywhere in the world. And my wife's part of that business. I feel so grateful of the gift that my biggest struggle, or a struggle that I had in my life, actually turned out to be my greatest gift. And I think that's the case for so many people.
It is. And I mean, when we look at the graph, I know people can't see this right now, but since the last 10 years you mentioned, it's just gone up. And there's no coincidence of the variable that's changed there, right?
No, and it's been hard at times in the sense that I'm still the only person in my network that doesn't drink. But the results speak for themselves.
And that's a good example, though, I think, just finishing off on that, which is you're the only person within your network who doesn't drink. So you don't have to be living in a world where everybody doesn't drink and everyone's given everything up. You can hold your own. That's exactly what you do and train people on doing, right?
Absolutely. Because, again, it's individual choice, isn't it? But it's genuinely, it is such a superpower in a world that's awash with alcohol. To be the one or, two people, stand out a mile. It literally gives you something that no one else has got. And for me, that's been the gift. That's why that chart just goes off the scale now.
Gosh, you've got me stuck between two words for you, and they're very different and it's very tricky. Anyway, before we get to that, I have got a few quick fire questions for you, right? Keep some simple and then we'll get into things. Okay, easy ones. Like, what's your go-to non-alcoholic drink?
I like Lucky Saint.
Okay.
Or Athletic Brewing.
Okay.
In the US.
To give them a try, right. Now, if you could go back to one day in your football career, what would it be and why?
It would be a game that I played over in Ireland, funny enough.
And
it was that flow moment. In the zone, everything went right. I couldn't miss a tackle. Every pass was beautifully timed. It was just a really special sporting moment for me. That absolute absorption in task. That was a moment that will live with you forever.
And finally, if I could give you an unlimited supply of one thing in your life, what would it be?
Alcohol-free beer. I'd be quite happy with that.
Love it. Well, Andy, it has been great to get to know you and kind of go on your journey. And look, there were two ways that I could go with this one, and I've chosen the harder route for me. Because I think, look, throughout getting to know your life, there's been a lot of change going on, positive change though. And I think in getting to know you, you're clearly very optimistic about this change. But you've had a change not only in your own life personally, but I think on the lives of so many people. And even in your career. And it's not easy to go. You said this before about athletes from football, average, age around 28. Then you go into all brokerage, and then you've changed again into another career to find your purpose. And so the word that comes to mind for me, quite a long one here, but it is all about just transformation and being transformative, because you've transformed your life. I mean, you've transformed your career 3 times. You've transformed hundreds of thousands of people's lives. And transformation is all about having a marked impact on someone or something. And I feel like you've done that incredibly on so many people. What does it mean to you?
Yeah, I'm loving that you've chose that. Because the obvious one would have been alcohol-free SuperPower. Exactly. And I think that's where my wife was going.
I know, it was too easy for me.
It was too easy, yeah. But we'll keep that because that is a superpower. So I've got 2 superpowers. And that's funny enough, what I do in coaching is transformative coaching. Because I really believe that we're just warming up. We are just getting going in this short and precious life. And too many people pigeonhole themselves, get stuck in careers that don't serve them. Or like athletes think that they can't achieve again. Just warming up. You just have to be able to see it. And hopefully I'm a living, breathing example of that.
You are. And I think you really, really are, because I think when we look at this through the lens of your career, let alone when we get into the alcohol-free impact, it's not easy to transform from the world of sporting into the world of all brokerage, into the world of finding your purpose and, alcohol-free and changing lives, or what you've transformed in your own life and that of others. So, thank you so much. And I hope there's so much that people can kind of take away from this today. Now, final question really is, as we look ahead in the years to come, what do you want people to remember Andy for? What's your legacy?
My legacy, I think, is someone that had a go at this short and precious life. I think I read a Teddy Roosevelt quote many years ago, and he said, we have 2 options in life. We can choose to wear out or rust out. I choose to wear out. And I really like that. I have a real long-term vision of 70s and 80s and 90s still showing up and shining a message of transformation in many ways. I'm excited about that. It's nice to be excited about the future or our future. And I owe all of that to, some of these hard knocks along the ways and being courageous enough to try different things. So I think it's excitement for the future.
Well, Andy, thank you so much. And I hope those listening will go check out your app, read more about your book and your work, and go and transform their own lives, because you've had an impact on me already. I think next time I reach for a drink, I'll be thinking twice of your impact. So thanks for being with us today. It's great to meet you, and wish you all the best.
And you. Thank you.
A huge thank you to you, our listeners, for being part of our community by watching, subscribing, liking, and also leaving comments on all of our videos. It truly means so much to us, and it helps us to grow the show, making it possible for us to invite even more amazing guests for future seasons. And if there's someone you'd love to see on the show, do let us know. Your suggestions help us bring on incredible guests that you really want to hear from. Feel free to leave those in the comments or send a message directly to me on my social channels at @GuianPower. We'd love to hear from you. Have you found the episodes? How have they made you feel? Have they inspired you, challenged you in any which way? Share your experience. We always love to hear your stories. And we've got some super exciting plans ahead. And with your support, we can take the SuperPower podcast to even greater heights. So if you're enjoying the show, please hit that follow button on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you're listening. And hey, if you're watching on board your in-flight entertainment, remember to follow us when you land. Or if you've got Wi-Fi in the sky, hit that follow or subscribe button now. For now, thank you once again for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode of the SuperPower Podcast with me, Gian Power.